Be talking with somebody who's really going to talk to us and pour into us as authors and as small business owners, because so often we are doing everything else, trying to advance the business, trying to take care of our families, trying to hold down our communities, and we're doing so much that sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves. So my first guest, Miss Lindsey Dial, she's going to be talking a lot about how CEOs, small business owners, and authors such as ourselves can take care of ourselves while we're trying to take care of everybody else and everything else. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring on Miss Lindsey. Hello, how are you?
Hey, Dr. Rhonda, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for asking. And I want to also thank you publicly because as we were getting ready for the show, you took the time to ask me how I was doing. And sometimes those words mean so much. And it means a lot because somebody notices that you've been grinding or that you've been going through it. And they take time to say, "Are you okay?" And I think that's something that a lot of small business owners or people who are givers, they don't always hear that. So I wanted to thank you for that. And I thought it was also a great precursor into our conversation today.
Yes, 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 yes. I just want to know that I was listening. Yes, and I see you. The struggle can.
About how we as entrepreneurs, business owners, authors, we're doing so much. And not only do we forget to take care of ourselves, but we start to live in the here and now. And we forget to plan. Like right now, this is July. You know, everybody's talking about Christmas in July. That's not just about getting your Christmas presents early. This is the time to start planning for that second half of the year.
Yes, yes. So what we were talking about earlier is like you want to finish the year strong. And a lot of times we are so into this space of, okay, if I didn't start off strong, and then we start to think about, okay, well, in the beginning of the year, 2025, we have all these very aggressive goals. And when we drop off, we kind of just let it go. And so,
Right.
or you might have goals that you thought were aligned with where you were trying to be at, and you've accomplished them, but you're still not feeling this balance. You're still not feeling happy inside or any type of internal joy. So what I've been working with my clients is just finishing the second year off strong, and then maybe realigning some goals and trying to figure out, okay, well, if you're feeling anxious in this area, well, what's the reason why I'm feeling anxious? Do I have too much on my plate? Where do we need to change? What area in your life do we need to focus on a little bit more? The thief of joy.
Mm.
It is the thief of joy. You have to just be the narrator of your own life and just think about, what do you want? But I agree with you. It can be because the thing about that is that when you're in these different roles as a mother or as a wife or in a relationship, you have to allocate time for yourself. Like you have to. I was so intentional with it when I had my daughter because I saw so many women, whether it's friends or clients, completely lose themselves. So I was blocking out, and I was doing it bad because when I first started, it was like I had a block out of a free weekend, then I had a block out of a date night, then I had a block out with my girlfriends, and I was like, oh no, I did way too much planning. Like I need to just relax. And so I ended up having to adjust it maybe going into the next year because I was making sure I was balancing everything out, but it was just getting to be too much, which is fine.
Right.
You just I hear that all the time. And I think it's because now we're getting into cultural. And you don't want to have to explain certain times your these cultural backgrounds or cultural norms. I don't think it's a problem, but it's just extra part of the process. So I do think it's very important for you to feel seen and heard when you go to your therapist. And a lot of times, if they look like us, we probably had very similar experiences in some way, form, or fashion. A lot of my clients that I have now, African American women, 25 to like 65, it's very similar, whether it's happened to me personally or professionally, or I've worked, it's happened to a friend. So a lot of these things are not anything new that I've ever dealt with. But now I can give you the life experience, but also the clinical experience of what tools to use. But it's good that I'm glad that you realize that it doesn't work, and then you want to get someone, because what you don't want to do is waste your time. I do think you have to give the therapist a you do have to give the therapist a chance. So if they do certain things that's like initially you just know this is just not a connection. But I think sometimes what you don't want to be is the client that's jumping from therapist to therapist to therapist, because then you're never going to actually get the help that you need. But
Right.
sense, and then just see, like, are you getting something from this, and be clear, this is what I want my clinical goals to be, my counseling goals. This is what I'm trying to get from it. And if they're going in a direction that you don't see, let them know. Because sometimes I think a lot of times you'll have an intake and you'll come in and you'll say that you've had this. Okay, so I'm gonna give you an example. Let's say that you were date raped when you were 17 years old. You're having problems in your marriage, and let's also say that you're having challenges with your child, or whatever, your child had issues. So
Mhm.
a clinician would do an intake, and they might see certain things and feel like, oh, we need to jump into this and focus on, let's say, the date rape. But you don't process that, you're over it, you're done with it. You need to let them know that your focus might be on your marriage right now, and this is what you want to work on. Then you have to be very clear that this is where I'm at in my process, and this is what I need help in. Even though I've given you this background information, I have gotten the help that I've needed, or I don't think that this is a challenge at this time. I don't have any triggers in this area. I don't, so just be very clear and direct as to what you are seeking from counseling.
You know, um, my own the very very first time I was still in my 20s when I thought I wanted to speak with a therapist. I felt like she had, I don't want to say she gave me a diagnosis, but she told me that I was doing something, but she didn't explain to me why she felt that way. And she just said, "Oh, you're enabling." And I was like, "Well, how am I enabling? This doesn't have anything to do with what I'm telling you." It took me years later to understand what she was saying, but I didn't feel that she really explained it in that moment. So it really didn't help me. I just felt that she was making an assumption. Do Have you heard of cases like this, or does it?
Thing for insurance purposes, you have to diagnose off the first session, right? But a lot of my clinicians, what I have on my team is we might have a certain diagnosis, but within 3 to 6 months, we might change the diagnosis because now you've had more history and experience. So I really try to get away from this what I call is like labeling. Like, even though I might say major depressive disorder, or I might say anxiety, we're going to focus on the triggers. We're going to focus on the symptoms. What are some things that are getting you there? Because sometimes it might not even be that. I had a client today I was talking to, and she's having a lot of challenges with focusing and concentrating and staying on task. And I'm seeing this a lot, especially with African American women, adult ADHD. But a lot of times what happens is symptoms overlap. So you might have depression. So think about depression. You have lack of motivation, fatigue, crying spells, all of these other things that come with it. Maybe insomnia, hypersomnia. So if you're not sleeping well, and so someone would think, okay, well, I'm exhausted. I know I have depression, anxiety, I'm all over the place. But in actuality, if it's ADHD and you're not getting the proper medication, those symptoms are still going to show up. So we were having a conversation where I was saying we need to go back to your psychiatrist and have them look this up, because I'm seeing a common theme that's going on, and we think that everything falls under this major depression disorder or anxiety, and it could. But if you're on your proper medication, we're doing everything that we're doing, and it still is all over the place, you might need Adderall. And so a lot of times people are so against medication, and I used to be like that in the beginning, but I've seen how you taking this one pill can slow your brain down to
Yes.
help you focus and just get locked in. And it's amazing what you can accomplish once you have the proper diagnosis, the proper medication,
Yeah.
and you're doing the psychotherapy to work with it. It's one thing when you are like an expert in and a facilitator, but like when you've actually walked the walk, I feel like you can talk the talk, because I've been there, done it, and I get it. Like, I get what that person was going through. I get what they were feeling. And this is what I had to do to get myself out from the valley up into the mountain.